The first man came through the study window. Glass shattered across the Persian rug as a figure in black tactical gear rolled into Desmond Crown's private office, weapon raised. Desmond stumbled backward from his desk, knocking over a crystal decanter of scotch worth more than most people's cars. What the? Two more men came through the door, then another through the side entrance, then a fifth, flanking from the hallway. 5 men, all armed, all moving with military precision. And Desmond Crown, billionaire, tech mogul, one of the most powerful men in Washington, D.C., was trapped. Mr. Crown, the leader said, his voice cold behind his balaclava. Someone paid a lot of money for you to disappear tonight. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Desmond's back hit the bookshelf. Nowhere to run. No security in sight. The panic button under his desk was 10 feet away. Might as well have been 10 miles. This was how he died. Alone. Helpless. In his own home. The leader raised his weapon, and then the maid walked in. Imani Cole, 28 years old, black, 5'7", wearing a simple gray uniform and carrying a silver serving tray with Desmond's evening tea. For a moment, everyone froze. Wrong room, the leader said dismissively. Get out, or you die with him. Imani didn't move. She set the tray down slowly on the side table. I said get out. Imani looked up and smiled. No. What happened next took exactly 11 seconds. Imani's right hand swept the teapot off the tray. Boiling water arced into the eyes of the nearest attacker. He screamed, clawing at his face. She was already moving. The tray became a weapon, edge slamming into the second man's throat, dropping him gasping to his knees. She caught his falling weapon, ejected the magazine in one fluid motion, and threw the empty gun at the third man's face. He flinched. That was all she needed. Her palm struck his nose. Her knee found his groin. Her elbow cracked against his temple. He crumpled. 3 down, 4 seconds. The fourth man swung at her, trained, professional, fast, not fast enough. Imani ducked, grabbed his arm, and used his momentum to flip him over her hip. He hit the hardwood floor with a sound like breaking furniture. She stomped once on his solar plexus. He stopped moving. 4 down, 7 seconds. The leader finally reacted, raising his weapon, finger on the trigger. Imani threw a letter opener from Desmond's desk. It buried itself in the man's shoulder. He screamed, the gun clattering to the floor. She crossed the distance in 2 steps, caught his injured arm, twisted, and brought him to his knees. Her forearm locked around his throat. Who sent you? She asked calmly. I don't... She tightened her grip. Who sent you? Vance, the man choked out. Marcus Vance. He paid $2 million for Crown. Please don't. Imani released him. He collapsed unconscious. 5 down, 11 seconds. Desmond Crown stood frozen against his bookshelf, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His maid, the woman who brought him tea every evening, who he'd never spoken to beyond leave it on the desk, whose name he'd never bothered to learn, had just dismantled 5 trained killers with her bare hands. She turned to face him. Mr. Crown, she said, her voice calm as if nothing had happened. Are you injured? Desmond couldn't form words. Sir? Who? He finally managed. Who are you? Imani Cole straightened her uniform, brushing dust from her sleeve. I'm your maid, sir. I bring you tea at 7 p.m. every evening. She picked up the serving tray, now dented from combat. Speaking of which, your tea is cold. I'll bring a fresh pot. And she walked out of the room, stepping over unconscious bodies like they were nothing more than fallen leaves, leaving Desmond Crown standing in the wreckage of his study, realizing he'd never actually seen the woman who just saved his life. You just watched a maid take down 5 armed attackers in 11 seconds flat. A woman who brings tea, who cleans rooms, who's been invisible in a billionaire's mansion for 2 years, and she just saved his life like it was nothing. But you don't know who Imani Cole really is. You don't know why a woman with those skills is working as a maid, and you don't know who Marcus Vance is, or why he paid $2 million to make Desmond Crown disappear. If you've ever been overlooked because of your job, if you've ever hidden who you really are to survive, if you've ever wondered what would happen if the invisible people suddenly became impossible to ignore, then stay with me. Because this story is about to show you that the person cleaning your house might be the most dangerous person in your life. And also, the one who saves it. Hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to see what happens when Desmond Crown finally learns the truth about his maid. Now, let me take you back 2 years, to the day Imani Cole became invisible on purpose. Imani Cole had been invisible for exactly 2 years. Not the kind of invisible where people don't see you, the kind where they see right through you, where they look at your uniform and decide you're not worth noticing. She'd mastered that invisibility, cultivated it, hidden inside it. Because 2 years ago, Imani Cole didn't exist, at least not officially. Before she was a maid in Desmond Crown's Washington, D.C. mansion, she was Staff Sergeant Imani Cole, United States Army, assigned to a classified protection unit that guarded high-value assets in conflict zones. She'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, 1 classified deployment she still couldn't talk about. She'd protected diplomats, generals, intelligence assets. She'd killed people who needed killing and saved people who needed saving. She'd been one of the best close protection operatives in the military. And then she'd made a mistake. One mistake. It cost a man his life. Senator David Chen, a good-seeing man, a reformer, someone who actually wanted to change the broken systems in Washington. Imani had been assigned to his protection detail during a foreign trip. Routine mission, low threat assessment. She'd missed the signs. A staff member who asked too many questions. A security gap that seemed insignificant. A moment where she looked left when she should have looked right. The bullet that killed Senator Chen had been meant for him, but it had passed 2 inches from Imani's face before finding its target. She heard the impact, felt his blood spray across her cheek, watched the light leave his eyes as she held him in the street. He had a wife, 2 daughters, a life full of promise. And he died because Imani Cole missed something she should have seen. The official investigation cleared her. No fault found. Unforeseen circumstances. The operative performed admirably under impossible conditions, but Imani knew the truth. She'd failed. And Senator Chen had paid the price. She left the Army 6 weeks later. Honorable discharge, full benefits, a folder full of commendations that meant nothing. She disappeared, changed her name in all the ways that mattered. Moved to D.C., took a job that no one would ever look twice at. A maid, invisible, anonymous, forgettable. She'd planned to stay hidden forever, to live quietly with her guilt, to never be responsible for another life again. And then she'd gotten the call. Margaret Chen, Senator Chen's widow. "I know who you are," Margaret had said. "I know what you did for my husband, and I know what happened wasn't your fault." Imani had hung up. Margaret had called back. "I need your help. There's a man named Desmond Crown. He's in danger, real danger, and the people who want to hurt him are the same people who killed my husband. I don't do that anymore." "I know, but he doesn't have anyone else, and I can't watch another good person die because no one was protecting them." Imani had been silent for a long moment. "Why do you care about Desmond Crown?" "Because my husband was investigating something before he died. Corporate corruption, money laundering, a network of powerful people doing terrible things. Desmond Crown is the key to exposing all of it. He just doesn't know it yet." "Then tell him." "I can't. If he knows he's in danger, he'll panic. He'll make noise, and they'll kill him before he can help anyone." Margaret's voice was steady but heavy. "I need someone inside. Someone who can watch him, protect him, without him ever knowing. You want me to be his maid. I want you to be his guardian angel in a maid's uniform." Imani had almost said no, but then Margaret had said something that changed everything. "David believed in you, Imani. He told me once that you were the best soldier he'd ever served with. He said if anything ever happened to him, you were the one person he'd trust to finish what he started." Imani had closed her eyes. Senator Chen, the man she'd failed, trusting her even from the grave. "I'll do it," she'd said. "But if Crown fires me or makes my life impossible, I'm out." "He won't fire you," Margaret had said. "He barely notices the staff. You'll be invisible." She'd been right. For 2 years, Imani had worked in Desmond Crown's mansion, cleaned his rooms, brought his tea, watched his back without him ever knowing. She'd intercepted 3 previous threats: a poisoned meal, a compromised security system, a suspicious new hire who turned out to be a reconnaissance agent. All handled quietly, all without Desmond ever knowing he'd been in danger. She'd become his shadow, his silent guardian, the woman he saw every day but never actually saw. Until tonight. Tonight, 5 men had come to kill him, and Imani Cole had finally stepped out of the shadows. Now everything was about to change. The police came, then private security, then a woman in a federal jacket who asked too many questions and got too few answers. Imani had retreated to the kitchen, staying out of sight, letting Desmond's security team take credit for apprehending the already unconscious attackers. She'd almost made it back to her quarters when his voice stopped her. "You." Imani turned slowly. Desmond Crown stood in the kitchen doorway. His shirt was untucked, his hair disheveled, his face still carrying the shock of what had happened. But his eyes were sharp, focused, fixed on her. "I don't know your name," he said. "Imani, sir. Imani Cole." "Imani." He repeated it like he was testing how it felt. "You've worked here for how long?" 2 years, sir." 2 years. He stepped closer. 2 years, and I've never spoken to you, never asked your name, never noticed you at all. "That's the job, sir. Maids aren't meant to be noticed. Maids aren't meant to take down 5 armed men in 11 seconds either." His voice was quiet but intense. "Who are you?" "I told you, You're not just a maid." He was in front of her now, close enough that she could see the fear still lingering in his eyes. "I've hired private security firms with former military operators. I've seen them train. None of them move like you did." Imani said nothing. "The way you disabled them, the efficiency, the calm, that wasn't self-defense. That was professional. Military-grade professional." Still nothing. "Who sent you?" Desmond demanded. "Who do you work for?" "I work for you, Mr. Crown. I have for 2 years." "Don't lie to me." His voice cracked slightly. "Someone just tried to kill me in my own home. 5 men with weapons and training. And my maid, my tea-bringing maid, took them down like it was nothing. So I'll ask again. Who are you?" Imani held his gaze. She'd known this moment would come eventually. The moment her cover was blown. The moment she'd have to choose between the truth and the mission. "I'm the person who's been keeping you alive," she said finally. "For 2 years." Desmond blinked. "What?" "The food poisoning you thought you had 8 months ago, it was actual poison. I intercepted it before it reached your plate. The security breach last spring, a reconnaissance team mapping your home for exactly this kind of attack. I identified and removed them. The new driver you hired 6 months ago, he was paid to drive you into an ambush. I got him fired before his second day." Desmond's face went pale. That's not possible. My security team..." "Your security team is compromised," Imani said flatly. "At least 2 members are feeding information to the people who want you dead. I've been working around them, not with them." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you weren't supposed to know. The person who sent me believed that if you knew you were in danger, you'd react. You'd make moves that would tip off your enemies, and they'd accelerate their timeline." "The person who sent you?" Desmond's voice was barely a whisper. "Who?" Imani hesitated. This was the part Margaret had told her never to reveal, the part that connected everything. But Desmond had almost died tonight, and he deserved to know why. "Margaret Chen," Imani said. "Senator David Chen's widow." Desmond staggered backward like he'd been struck. David Chen, the senator who was assassinated 3 years ago. "The same people who killed him are trying to kill you, and you're connected in ways you don't even understand yet." Desmond sank into a kitchen chair, his head in his hands. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." Imani remained standing, watching him. The man she'd protected from the shadows for 2 years, finally seeing her for the first time. Not as a maid, not as furniture, as the woman who'd saved his life. "Mr. Crown," she said quietly, "I know this is a lot, but we don't have time for shock. Marcus Vance, the man who sent those attackers, he's not going to stop. Tonight was an opening move. There will be more." Desmond looked up at her. "Marcus Vance is my business partner. Imani nodded grimly. I know. Here's what destroys me about this moment. Imani Cole worked in Desmond Crown's home for 2 years. She brought him tea every evening at 7 p.m. She cleaned his rooms. She washed his dishes. She walked past him in the hallways dozens of times, and he never learned her name, never asked where she was from, never wondered what her life was like outside his walls, never saw her as anything more than a function, a pair of hands that kept his mansion running. She was invisible, and she used that invisibility to save his life, again and again, without recognition, without thanks, without him ever knowing. How many people are invisible in your life? How many names don't you know? How many people serve you every single day, cleaning your office, making your coffee, driving your car, and you've never once asked who they really are? Subscribe if you believe that every person deserves to be seen, that the people who serve us might be the ones saving us. And that invisibility is a tragedy we create by choosing not to look. 3 hours later, Imani and Desmond sat in his private study, the same room where 5 men had tried to kill him, now cleaned and guarded by security operatives Imani had personally vetted. On the desk between them, a folder Margaret Chen had compiled over 3 years, documents, photographs, financial records, a web of corruption that stretched across Washington, D.C. and beyond. Your company, Imani explained, pointing to a diagram, processes financial transactions for dozens of major institutions, banks, investment firms, government contractors. I know what my company does, Desmond said tightly. What you don't know is that your systems are being used to launder money. Billions of dollars flowing through your infrastructure, cleaned and redistributed to a network of shell companies controlled by a group calling themselves the Foundation. Desmond stared at the documents. That's impossible. Our compliance protocols were designed by Marcus Vance, Imani interrupted, your business partner, who also happens to be one of the senior members of the Foundation. Desmond's jaw clenched. Marcus and I built Crown Financial together, from nothing. He's been my partner for 12 years. And for at least 6 of those years, he's been using your company to fund illegal operations, arms dealing, human trafficking, political manipulation. Imani slid another document forward. Senator Chen discovered the connection. He was building a case to expose everything. That's why they killed him. And now they want to kill me because you're the key. Crown Financial systems are encrypted with your personal biometrics. If Vance wants to permanently control the money laundering operation without leaving traces, he needs to either own you completely or eliminate you and restructure the company in the chaos that follows. Desmond leaned back, his face gray. I've known Marcus for 12 years. He was at my wedding. He's godfather to my niece. How could I not see? Because he didn't want you to see, Imani said gently. These people are professionals. They've been doing this for decades. You're not stupid for trusting your partner. You're human. Desmond looked at her. Really looked, maybe for the first time. You've been protecting me for 2 years, living in my home, watching me every day. His voice was raw. I didn't even know your name until tonight. It was better that way. Was it? He stood, walking to the window. I've spent my whole life building something I thought mattered, a company, a legacy, and it turns out the person I trusted most was using me to fund monsters, while the person I never noticed was the only one actually keeping me safe. He turned back to face her. What happens now? Imani stood. Now we expose them. Margaret Chen has been building this case for 3 years. She has evidence, witnesses, connections in the DOJ who can actually prosecute. But she needs one thing to make it all work. What? You. Testifying, providing access to Crown Financial's internal systems, proving that you weren't complicit, and that Marcus Vance was. If I do that, I lose everything. The company, my reputation, my entire life. If you don't, Imani said quietly, you lose your actual life, and the Foundation keeps operating, keeps laundering money, keeps destroying people. She stepped closer. I know it's not fair. None of this is. But you have a choice right now. Be the man who hid or be the man who fought. Senator Chen made his choice. He died for it. But he died trying to do the right thing. Desmond stared at her for a long moment. And if I choose to fight, what happens to you? Imani's expression flickered, something vulnerable, quickly hidden. I finished the job I was sent to do. I keep you alive long enough to testify, and then I disappear again. Back to being invisible? It's what I'm good at. Here's what Imani understood that most of us don't. She could have stayed invisible forever, could have protected Desmond from the shadows indefinitely, could have kept her guilt and her grief and her broken past hidden where no one would ever see. But she chose to step into the light, not for recognition, not for reward, but because the mission mattered more than her comfort. Because sometimes doing the right thing means being seen, even when being seen is terrifying. How many of us hide our true selves because it's safer? How many of us have skills, knowledge, strength that we keep locked away because we're afraid of what happens if people really see us? Subscribe if you believe that the bravest thing you can do is step out of the shadows when it matters, that being seen is sometimes the price of doing what's right, and that the people who protect us often carry wounds we'll never know about. Continue. The takedown happened 2 weeks later. Desmond testified before a closed congressional committee, providing full access to Crown Financial's systems. Federal investigators traced billions in laundered money through the network of shell companies. Arrest warrants were issued for Marcus Vance and 17 other members of the foundation. Marcus tried to run, made it as far as a private airstrip in Virginia before federal agents surrounded his plane. He was led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling, his face a mask of cold fury. "This isn't over, Desmond," he screamed as they pushed him into the car. "You have no idea what you've done. They'll come for you. They'll never stop." Desmond watched from a distance, Imani standing silently beside him. "He's right, isn't he?" Desmond asked quietly. "The foundation is bigger than him. There will be others." "Yes," Imani admitted. "But Marcus was their operations chief. Without him, they're fractured, weakened, and now the entire country knows they exist." The news coverage was relentless. Billionaire exposes massive corruption network. Crown Financial scandal rocks Washington. The foundation, inside the shadow organization. Desmond's company was seized, his assets frozen, his reputation destroyed by association, even though he'd been the one to expose the truth. He lost everything he'd built, but he was alive, and Margaret Chen finally had justice for her husband. Imani found her at Senator Chen's grave 2 days after the arrests, laying flowers on the headstone. "It's done," Imani said, standing a respectful distance away. "I know," Margaret's voice was thick with tears. "I saw the news. 3 years, and it's finally done." "I'm sorry I couldn't save him." Margaret turned to face her. "You saved someone else, someone who mattered, and you helped finish what David started." She walked to Imani and took her hands. "David would be proud of you. I hope you know that." Imani felt tears burn her eyes, the first she'd allowed herself in years. "I don't know what to do now," she admitted. "The mission is over, and I don't know how to be anything other than invisible." "Maybe it's time to find out," Margaret said gently. "Maybe it's time to let someone see you." That night, Imani packed her bag in her small quarters at the Crown Mansion, a room she'd occupied for 2 years without ever making it her own. She was almost to the door when Desmond appeared. "You're leaving." It wasn't a question. "The job is done," Imani said. "Vance is in custody. The foundation is exposed. You don't need a guardian anymore." "What if I'm not asking for a guardian?" Imani stopped. "I've spent 2 weeks thinking about what you said," Desmond continued. "About the people we don't see, the names we don't learn, the lives we walk past without noticing." He stepped closer. "I built a company worth billions, but I never saw the person protecting me from 2 feet away. I never asked your name, never wondered who you were, and you saved my life anyway. It was my job." "It was more than that, and we both know it." Imani set down her bag. "What do you want, Mr. Crown?" "Desmond," he corrected, "and I want to give you something. Something you've earned." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter, a formal recommendation on Crown Financial letterhead, before the company had been seized. "I wrote that 2 days after the attack," Desmond explained. "It's a recommendation for federal protection services. I made some calls. There's a new task force being formed, specialists who protect witnesses, whistleblowers, people who expose corruption and need to stay alive long enough to testify. Imani stared at the letter. You want me to protect more people? I want you to do what you're extraordinary at, but in the light this time, with resources, with support, with people who actually see you. I don't need... Yes, you do, Desmond interrupted gently. You've been punishing yourself for 3 years, hiding, becoming invisible because you think you deserve to disappear. He stepped closer. But the woman who saved Senator Chen's legacy, who protected me for 2 years without ever asking for recognition, that woman doesn't deserve to disappear. She deserves to be seen. Imani's eyes glistened. And what about you? She asked. Your company's gone. Your partner betrayed you. Your whole life is destroyed. Desmond smiled, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. That's the thing about losing everything. You get to choose what to build next. He gestured around the mansion. This place is being sold. The money's going to the Chen Foundation, Margaret's nonprofit helping families of victims of political violence. That's millions of dollars. It's blood money, Desmond said simply, built on systems that were used to hurt people. The least I can do is redirect it toward helping people instead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. And this is for you. Imani opened it. Inside was a medal, Senator Chen's Medal of Valor, the one he'd been posthumously awarded for his fight against corruption. Margaret wanted you to have it, Desmond said. She said David would have wanted the person who finished his mission to carry his legacy forward. Imani held the medal, tears finally falling. I failed him, she whispered. He died because I missed. He died because evil people killed him, Desmond said firmly. And he lives on because you didn't let them win. That's not failure. That's victory. Imani looked up at him. This man she'd protected from the shadows, who was now standing in front of her, finally seeing her. What if I don't know how to be visible anymore? Then we'll figure it out together. Desmond extended his hand. I'm Desmond Crown. I used to be a billionaire, but I'm not really sure what I am now. And I'd like to actually meet the woman who saved my life. Imani stared at his hand. Then she took it. Imani Cole, former soldier, former maid, currently figuring things out. Desmond smiled. Nice to meet you, Imani, for the first time. 1 year later, Imani Cole led the new Witness Protection Special Task Force, a unit dedicated to protecting the people brave enough to expose corruption and face the consequences. Her first assignment, a whistleblower from a pharmaceutical company who'd exposed deadly cover-ups. She kept him alive for 11 months, got him to trial, watched him testify. She wasn't invisible anymore, and she was finally okay with that. Desmond Crown started over, smaller company, different mission, focused on financial transparency, helping organizations identify and prevent the kind of corruption that had almost destroyed him. He and Imani had dinner once a month, as friends, as equals, as 2 people who'd seen each other at their worst and their best. Margaret Chen spoke at a memorial service for her husband on the 5th anniversary of his death. David used to say that the people who change the world aren't the ones who seek glory. They're the ones who work in the shadows, doing what's right even when no one's watching, she said. Today, I want to thank one of those people, someone who stayed invisible for years so that others could live, someone who finished what my husband started. She looked into the audience, where Imani sat quietly in the back. Imani Cole, I see you, we all see you, and we are grateful. Imani nodded, tears in her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't want to disappear. She wanted to be exactly where she was, visible, valued, seen. The end. Here's what Imani's story teaches us about visibility. For 3 years, she hid. She made herself small. She worked jobs where no one would see her because she believed she deserved to disappear. She punished herself for a failure that wasn't her fault, and in doing so, almost robbed the world of everything she had to offer. But when she finally let herself be seen, when she stepped out of the shadows and claimed her purpose, she didn't just save one life. She built something that would save thousands. Maybe you're hiding too. Maybe you've convinced yourself that your skills don't matter, that your voice isn't worth hearing, that the world is better off if you stay invisible. But here's the truth. The world needs you, visible, present, brave enough to be seen. Subscribe if you believe that the people who protect us deserve to be recognized. That invisibility is a tragedy we can choose to end, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop hiding and let the world see who you really are, because you are not meant to be invisible. You are meant to be seen.